Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is going to be a shorter video today. From my last video, the Q&A that I did for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the USA, I actually had left out a big chunk of questions. So this is just part 2 of that video answering questions. The majority of the questions I'll be going through today will be from Canada and probably a couple from Australia, and I think just one other one. So hopefully it won't take too long, just a short video. But before I start, I thought for those of you who watched my last video, for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Aural, and I'm a psychic medium and a medical intuitive, and I actually do regular free Q&As here on my YouTube channel. I will alternate between geopolitical questions and personal questions. And a few days ago, I did a video with geopolitical questions, and I usually open it up to questions where I do free readings. And this is the follow-up of the last geopolitical question. And so when I'm actually tuning in, I won't always look at that little green light here. I actually will look over to my left, sometimes down, or sometimes with my notepad, I might write or just scribble. Just need to do a brain dump, and I just need to get all the information out. So in that video a few days ago, I remember saying that I felt that this thing with the energy crisis, they're going to try to make of it almost like a second type of, almost like a COVID situation where there's going to be like a lockdown of some sort. Well, excuse me, don't know if I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. Okay, so I don't know whether they're going to do, I had a feeling that they were going to do some kind of, I had a feeling like they were going to do some kind of COVID lockdown, but not necessarily with COVID. It was around the energy. I felt like it was they were going to try to reintroduce some kind of lockdown that was equivalent to the COVID outbreak, but it was all around energy. So just today I discovered something, and this is something that was released by the IEA. And I'll read it out to you. IEA is the acronym for International Energy Agency. And it's unveiled its updated 10-point plan to cut oil use. And they did that on Friday, the 20th of March. Now, the 10-point plan is an emergency strategy developed by the IEA, and it's to reduce the global oil demand rapidly during the severe supply disruptions released in response to the 2026 Middle East energy crisis. Now, some of you may be aware of this, a lot of you may not. So I thought I'd like to just share it here because there's something on here that I had a feeling about, and then I just kind of want to mention it. So they're wanting that the plan is designed for immediate impact, and these are the 10 steps. The plan focuses heavily on road transport, which accounts for nearly half of the global oil demand. So point 1 of the plan, emergency plan, is to work from home, reminiscent of our COVID days. Work remotely for up to 3 days a week where possible. Number 2, lower speed limits. Reduce highway speed limits by at least 10 kilometers per hour in the hopes of saving, petrol. Step 3, point 3, car-free Sundays. Ban private car use in major cities every Sunday. 4, alternate car access. Implement number plate rotation schemes to limit city road access on alternative days. So this means basically cutting traffic by half which cars can drive into the city on specific days based on the last digit of their number plate. Number 5 is to reduce public transport costs, by using subsidies to make transit cheaper and encourage its use. Plan 6 is to increase car sharing, carpooling. It's to promote that and eco-driving practices to improve fuel efficiency. Number 7, efficient freight driving, optimize commercial vehicle loads and maintenance. 8, avoid business air travel, use virtual conferencing instead of flying where digital alternatives exist. 9, prefer high-speed rail, use trains instead of planes for trips where feasible. And the 10th plan. The 10th plan is accelerate EV adoption, reinforce the shift towards electric and fuel-efficient vehicles. Now, in the video the other day, I not only said I actually feel that they're going to try to introduce a COVID-like environment that for energy, I also said that I feel that this is their way to actually start to push pushing the Paris Agreement and pushing the climate agreement that Australia's committed itself to, or the Albanese government has committed itself to. And I think I recently read in passing that China has just delivered a whole bunch of electric vehicles to Australia. So it's very interesting how this is Plan 10 as well. Now, the countries that are affected, it's basically, it's the advanced economies, and these are the member countries. There are 31 IEA member countries. In the Americas, there's the United States, Canada, and Mexico. In Asia, there's Asia Pacific, there's Australia, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand. I noticed the other Asian countries as well as China's not in there. Europe, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and most European Union nations. It's interesting how China is not classed as an advanced economy, second largest economy in the world, I think. But in saying that, the Trump administration, although they approve of the IEA, they strongly reject the 10-point behavioral suggestions like working from home and car-free Sundays. And as of this month, like March 24th, no, it's not officially been implemented or mandated. So Australian Prime Minister Albanese and the Energy Minister Chris Bowen have acknowledged the recommendations, but sidestepped calls to mandate them for now. Canada is meeting with the IEA obligations by increasing oil and gas production, exporting it to allies rather than restricting domestic travel. Okay, that's in Canada. United Kingdom, there is no official government mandate for car-free Sundays or low speed limits. Discussions in the UK have leaned towards energy industrial resilience. And New Zealand has supported the IEA's collective action by agreeing to release emergency oil reserves, okay, which is equivalent to about 6 days of supply. So I just thought I would share that with you because maybe not everyone's aware of it. I feel it's something that we keep our finger on the pulse to see what our governments and wonderful politicians that have our best interest at heart are going to implement for us now in our countries. And so I shall now move on to doing the readings. I may have come across as a little cynical. Perhaps I need to cut that out. You know, somebody said that my guides appear to be a little biased. My guides are never biased. My spiritual guides give me pure, intuitive advice. I'm the one who occasionally expresses bias. I am human and I am imperfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. Okay, let's move on to the questions now. And here we go. So I'm going to start with Canada because it has the most. And I'm going to start with a question from Shauna. Okay, Laura, Canada just signed some kind of military agreement with Japan. What will the ultimate outcome of this pact cooperation over the last 4.5 years be? Is this plan in line with the goal for a united North American military union, i.e. Canada and the USA following a united complementary military doctrine? I feel yes and no, to be honest, Shauna. So I feel what they may want to do, firstly, is expand AUKUS. AUKUS is the acronym for Australia, United Kingdom, and the US. So they may want to expand that to include Canada and Japan in the AUKUS. But some part of me feels, I'm feeling like Carney almost wants to distance himself from the US. So there's a saying there's a phrase, a saying that runs with the foxes and chases with the hounds. So that the hounds chase the foxes. So I feel Carney he runs with the foxes being chased by the hounds, and he also runs with the hounds to chase the foxes. So I feel what that analogy pretty much means is he's playing both sides of the fence. So he's hedging his bets, not quite hedging his bets, but he's I'm just getting that he kind of wants to distance himself militarily from some of the ramifications of the US policies, but still come under the umbrella of the US military alliances. And I almost feel that he's wanting to join with Japan almost as a way to build strength that the Carney government won't be needing so much support from the US. So almost like they're wanting to distance themselves or slowly not become less reliant, should I say, on US. But at the same time, needing to be part of their umbrella, for example, the Iron Dome defense system that Trump wants to put in place. The Carney government actually wants to be part of that. But so that's where I kind of get the double standards. But I feel like he's trying to maneuver Canada to become less reliant on the USA, but at the same time take advantage of, or be part of, not take advantage, but be part of the military defense system, but not be responsible for or have to be called to do things that he doesn't agree with in those policies of the Trump administration in relation to military. But in saying that, the Japan Prime Minister, the lady, I don't know her name, but the previous Prime Minister of Japan was very good friends with Trump. And this lady here is very fond of Donald Trump, the president. And I feel there's a loyalty there. And so even though they're forming some kind of a strategic alliance with Canada, I feel that there'll still be loyalty to the US. So I hope that's answered your question, Shauna. I'll move on to the next question. Okay, this is from Lynn. Will Canada be more connected economically to the US? I just got yes, yes, yes. And I just got oil, oil, oil. And I feel there are the pipelines, because America is quite dependent on, I think, the oil that comes out, the pipelines and that come out from Canada. Is that right? Have I got that the right way around? And so I feel that there's that connection. There's going to be something to do with mining. So will they be more connected economically? I just got yes. More in relation with mining, mining and harvesting, maybe setting up not just mining, but harvesting it, going through the refinery or something like that. Or so I feel there's going to be an increase in that. And I feel America is going to have their finger in the pie in many countries to do with mining. I feel that Trump is trying to, and his administration is trying to set up being able to form these alliances with many countries, multiple countries, almost expand to the strength of what the old Commonwealth did. You had all these, Britain had expanded, and there were many Commonwealth countries that fell under the umbrella of Britain. And so I feel Trump is trying to do the same thing, really expand America's might, America's economic investments and interests, and have that reliance on the US, and that those alliances and friendships and those agreements with these countries. And that's what I feel that he's actually setting up, and he's going to be expanding. So I feel, yeah, Canada will be part of that. Excuse me, I don't know why my voice has gone hoarse. If I start neighing, then you can be worried. Okay, this is from Anti-Gravity, Gravity-ish. Also assuming that a lot is happening not visible to the public, may I ask who essentially is really calling the shots with Carney and the Canadian political elite now? King Charles? No. King Charles is not. Beijing or Washington? Calling the shots. So who essentially is really calling the shots with Carney? It's not King Charles, but it is Britain. Britain, and I feel ultimately Beijing. So yeah, but not necessarily King Charles. Washington with the current administration. So this is, what I feel is Carney is, the loyalty is there to Britain. The loyalty is there to Beijing, to China, and the need to have to negotiate and work with Washington. And that's how I feel he has to play it. He doesn't see America as its greatest ally. He's loyal to Britain. He's an asset of Britain, is what I feel. These are my feelings. I could be way wrong. And I feel it's kind of being steered and geared by China. Okay, shall we move on? Next question by Lynn. Okay. Okay, Lynn's asked a couple of questions. Will Alberta, Canada separate from the rest of Canada, and will Mark Carney be re-elected to Prime Minister? I don't believe Mark Carney will be re-elected. I feel he's going to lose, the administration is going to lose royally. Will Alberta, Canada separate from the rest of Canada? I don't see it. I don't see it. The feelings that I'm getting at the moment, I don't see it. And I feel once new government comes in and new premiers of the provinces get elected, replacing the current governments that are in those provinces, things are going to shift, and they're going to stay and hold for some time. So I don't see that that's going to happen. I don't see Alberta becoming its own independent country. I don't see it becoming the 50 the 51st state of the US. But what I see is they're causing enough traction, movement, and disruption, showing that they're unhappy, and they are building a bit of power, and they're strengthening their voice. People are going to have to start listening to them. I feel they already are. I feel Carney's going to have to cave a little bit to um, the Premier of Alberta. She's going to start to make more demands, and she'll get them as well. But only because Carney's, doing other things behind the scenes that he's kind of wanting to protect, is my feeling. Okay, the ethereal world. What is wrong with my voice? Excuse me. Okay, could you please look to see if the Canadian government is intentionally implementing a secret agenda to gradually eliminate the middle class, make people poorer, or control our food security in general? Yeah, I do. I feel that there are many governments at the moment that are, they're not alone in doing it. It's not as if they've sort of woken up and saying, I want to be mean to the country and to the constituents, the people of the country. It's actually all coming from the World Economic Forum and their agenda this agenda that they're wanting to actually have some kind of global authoritarian state, where they're wanting to basically usher in authoritarian rule. And so it is kind of that battle, and Canada and the people who are in government, who have been in government there for a while, along with other countries, there was a very big, it seems to be a very, the people that were in power that were all part of this is now starting to become wobbly and break apart. And you see the opposing parties in some of those countries where they were kind of governed under that authoritarian rule. You could actually see, they call them a democratic socialists, but really it's the start of Marxist, socialist, communist type of policies. Very authoritarian, very, yeah. So their little house of cards is starting to collapse and crumbling. And the prediction I'm going to make is the Trump administration is going to now, they've been moving rapid, they're very swift. They are going to pick up speed. They're going to introduce, now you're going to start, it's now time that you're going to start seeing prosecutions happening that people have been salivating for, been waiting for. They're going to now start, they've been actually wanting to line things up, dotting their I's, crossing their T's. And as these things start to happen, these prosecutions happen, these people that are being held accountable to things, people becoming unraveled that were involved in nefarious things through different countries, that is starting to break down. And my prediction is that the GOP, the Republicans, are going to win the midterms. And I just got in a landslide, and they're going to win 2028. And that you're going to have basically almost like a new party formed, like an America First type of party that will dominate for the next 10 years in America. And it's going to change the landscape, the face of the map in how things are done. Everyone's against Trump, but really he's really the shield at the moment, and the last, the final frontier, the last port of call, and to sort of shift this global landscape. And that's why I had predicted in previous videos that this is the time that there will be a lot of unrest. In my last video, also, I'd mentioned that, Iran regime is finished. I did a video, a slide on the Middle East. I do actually see that I saw there was an uprising. There was going to be an uprising, and I did see the Iranian regime collapsing and new government forming. But in saying that, I also predicted that I think I predicted that Al Qaeda was going to collapse, but ISIS is going to be on the rise. You're going to actually see more lone wolf attacks, knife attacks. I've been predicting this for a while. Jihadi type of attacks that will be on the rise. So yeah, and it will be in public places and so forth. Yeah, so just to be vigilant for things like that. But in saying that, also a lot of people are starting to stand up and fight against the excessive influx of immigration. And it's not about immigrants coming in, it's about the cultures that they're bringing with them that aren't really aligned with the cultures of the countries that they're going to. And there's a lot of crime, increase of crime. There's a lot of privileges that they're getting above other citizens. So it's upsetting. People aren't against legal immigration. They're against being neglected and having people who aren't actually citizens being given privileges for where the people and constituents aren't even able to get for themselves. And yeah, so next question. This is from Cinder Space. Is it now officially not public that it is now officially not public that Britain no longer has a hold over Canada anymore? No, yes and no. My feeling, and that's an interesting question. So it's officially not public in a sense. I get what you're saying by that. I actually feel that Canada is actually more beholden to China, and I actually feel Britain is more beholden to China, even though it looks like Britain is becoming more Islamic. There's more Islamification happening in Britain. I actually feel that the power of Britain is basically collapsing. The current government in the UK, I feel that they don't have the best interest of the people at heart. And everything's being geared towards a communist state, and a lot of them beholden to Beijing. I do feel that. So I feel that statement, in essence, is an accurate statement. But in saying that, I've had this feeling for a while before. I have actually predicted in a few slides that the Commonwealth is going to reduce in size. And I actually feel that the US is going to expand in size in terms of its influence and replace that. But I also feel they're going to be rescued by the US as well. That the UK is going to be rescued by the US, and it's going to be when there's a change of government. And I've said this before as well, and I'm sorry to say that I've said it before because not everyone watches my previous videos. And so sometimes I get comments, well, what you're saying is not new. And that's true, it's not new, but I've said it many times before. So you may see it in previous videos. What is wrong with my voice? Don't know if that's an omen that I have to be careful. But yeah, I'll move on. Maybe that is a sign. Okay, the next question. I'm just trying to go through these quickly because okay, Kevin, Is it going to be impossible to immigrate to the US or UK or Canada over the next 5 to 10 years? It's not going to be impossible, Kevin. Um, Depending on where you're coming from and depending on what you're able to offer. I feel some places with the current government in the United States, they're very stringent. And so it's going to be a long time ago with Australia, there was some kind of scoring system where they kind of had to see um, what value you actually had to bring to Australia, what education background, and also to the need of what Australia needed at that time. If they needed more people from a particular industry, they were more inclined to actually make that possible to bring people in like that a little bit more easier than other nations where or other people who didn't really have those skills. So it was more skill based. I don't know if they're going to reintroduce something like that, but I feel it will become more stringent, more strict, but it will be possible. It will just depend on where you're coming from and what your skill set is and what you actually have to offer the country. I feel at the moment, though, US it might be tricky, but the UK and Canada, you may be able to go sooner rather than later. They may start to sort of strengthen their borders and that. Okay. Okay, another question from Shauna. I'm wondering if you see any calamities, violent unrest, or significant debilitating mass power outages or grid failures in Ontario over the next 1 to 3 years. Okay, I've had a couple of people, because I think there's another question being asked of something similar, but in relation to Australia. So I'm going to answer the question that's come up for Australia from Deb, that's asking a similar question about a timeline for power outages in Australia. This is what I want to say about power outages. Let me just go up there. And this is my feeling. I feel sometimes I tap into feelings of the energy of things, of events maybe that are coming, could be coming in the future, in the near future, in the long future. But I started to get a sense of urgency lately. And my sense of urgency is around, I don't feel there'll be calamities in some places. There may be, but in general, I feel what it's going to be is unreliable resources. So you may have days that you don't have power. And I feel it's going to happen in a fashion that will help us become accustomed to having unreliable power, unreliable resources. And I feel it's getting us accustomed for that to happen, so then they can actually start to try to implement and eventually mandate everything to change over to the electric grid and to get rid of gas and petrol completely. So because I feel I do feel it's calculating. I actually do feel it is deliberate and calculating. And if you really do follow what's happening in the Middle East, Trump administration has more support than what's being reported. Trump's actually, America is just a very mighty military, and honestly, Iran on its own can't compare, can't compete, can't compare. It can't withstand or hold up against. It needs its allies to help secretly. And its allies, I feel, come in the form of governments who are meant to be allies of the United States as well, or people that, yeah. So it's quite clear that, you know, Russia and China were always aligned with Iran. And Trump tried to introduce tariffs and so forth to control their continual support to Iran. So Iran in itself is not a danger to the US. It's the thing around it. It's the people that are the radical who want to carry out what they believe needs to be carried out, and not necessarily in Iran, but in other countries, in Western countries. And that's where I see a lot of lone wolf attacks and so forth happening. A lot of perhaps sabotage happening to infrastructure and things like that, potentially water supply. I've potentially bridges. I'm kind of getting collapsing of bridges, blowing up of bridges, things like that. I'm seeing to sabotage and to disrupt and to cause a bit of terror and chaos. And so it's not going to be a calamity of such where it's going to be an all out sirens going. It's going to be intermittent, occasionally consistent disruptions that we get so used to it that when they start to introduce something that looks more promising, we're likely to take it. And the reason why I feel Australia is a bit hesitant in actually pushing out the 10-point plan of the IEA for the International Energy Association, I think it was, is because the One Nation, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, is actually building up momentum, and they know that they won't have the support of the people. So they've got to be tentative and cautious. So they've got to make it appear that they're helping, they're wanting to do things to help make things easier. But they can't. They know that they've got a rising voice. And so in terms of whether you're in Canada, whether you're in New Zealand, whether you're in Sri Lanka, wherever, Australia, wherever you may be, I feel that you should prepare for disruptions. And my feeling is when you're doing prepping, of course, I'm no expert at prepping. I'm learning the stuff myself. You want to be looking at least 2 weeks to a month, 2 weeks to a month, where you can kind of sustain. And it's more what happens during those periods is people who aren't prepared panic. And when they panic, this is what happens with mass panic. They mass buy, and you don't want to be there battling with everybody. You want to be able to be comfortable enough. So as resources come in, you're always a little bit a step ahead. You've always got resources to be able to help yourself with power, help yourself with water, help yourself with just food around the home, just so to sort of mitigate some of the disruptions. It's going to be disruption. And because this is a big election year and their main objective is to get rid of this administration and bring back the Democrats. And this is kind of like their final big fight at the Alamo. And, you know, you've got everyone coming to a gunfight. And you don't want to be just a bystander and get clipped by stray bullets. That's just an analogy. If you can kind of understand what I'm trying to say, you don't want to become what's the word? You want to be prepared, and you don't want to be part of the rush and the panic of something happening. So I hope that's answered Shauna's question and Deb's question in relation to energy. In terms of the time frame, I see it's going to be, I would start preparing from now. And because I feel things are going to start to happen intermittently. You may get 1 day here, 3 days there, could be a week in some places, it could be a major disruption, it could be a weather event, and so forth, with weather engineering and so forth. Anything to bring disruption and chaos to push an agenda, I don't underestimate that happening. So the more prepared we are, the less we need to panic. And yeah. Okay, next question. Are Carney and Trump working together to destroy Canada? Okay, no. Trump's not working with Carney to destroy Canada. I think Carney's doing a good job of his own doing that. I don't feel Carney and Trump is aligned at all. In fact, my gut feeling is I don't think Trump can stand Carney. And he's just got to tolerate him, and he's going to put screws on the government to try to force a hand for things to happen. And yeah, so I don't see that. And I'll be accused of being right-leaning, but honestly, I'm just really saying this is not biased. This is really me feeling what I feel. And, you know, would it be preferable that I'm kind of anti-Trump and then, you know, people think I'm wonderful? So no, I actually am just saying it as I feel it. And I don't believe that they're aligned in working to destroy Canada. I feel Carney is part of the imperialist institution of Britain, Great Britain, and parts of the European Union to basically bring down the Trump administration, to weaken the US, to bring in communism, and it's all being engineered by China and possibly Russia, but mostly China. That's my feeling. Okay, shall we move on? This is by anti-gravity again. Have I? Okay. A lot of phone towers are going up and high-speed fiber optics connectivity is being expanded in our region. Is the 5G, 6G control grid part of the agenda in Canada? How quickly do you see this agenda being rolled out, or might something possibly happen to slow it down? That's a really good question. You know, I'm going to actually say something. I don't think people realize just how biologically unhealthy some of this technology is to us and our biology. Our humans aren't designed to be plugged in and be resonating at a frequency that runs at microwave and higher. We just, we're not, biologically, we're not designed to do that. We're kind of designed to be plugged into the Earth's Schumann resonance and basically, yeah. So the capacity that in order to actually implement facial recognition, digital ID, they're going to need a very powerful electrical grid, and they're going to need and in order to implement 5G and 6G, they're going to need a very strong electrical grid. And if they're putting up phone towers to be able to accommodate for this, and usually because 5G, and I don't know about 6G, very short waves, so they're going to have towers closer to each other, and it's almost going to create a grid. That's why they're wanting high density living. That's why they're wanting to bring all the people into high density style of living, so they can have us almost like farming animals, herded into, you know, and they put it under convenience, 15-minute cities where you've got everything you need. You don't have to travel outside. You won't need, or you'll have your own water, you'll have your own power, you'll have your own shopping centers. You won't really need to travel outside so much. You'll be green, so you'll be, you know, you can be on an electric bike that's powered by a solar. And you'll be plugged in. So everywhere you go, your face will be recognized. You'll be scanned, you'll be monitored, and then the social credit system will come in where if you start to be disobedient, you'll be punished. So I believe that that's all part of the World Economic Forum and this implementation of 2030 agenda. If they're putting it up at high speed? Is it just happening in certain areas? If it's happening in your area, check with your local councils, find out, um, and and see what if people are aware of all of these towers that are going up, and you can actually see plans of what's going to be happening if you go and get involved in your local councils, attend meetings, ask questions, get a group of you to go there and ask questions and find out what's happening. I do feel ultimately it would be for that. But it's also too to power the technology that we're wanting to bring in as well, not just Canada, but globally. You know, all of these satellites that are going up into space. Biologically, it's not healthy, but this is where society is driving it. Our need for technology is basically going to be humanity's downfall. And this is where transhumanism comes in, you know, like make us part a cyborg and implant us with chips so we can kind of be consistently charged and connected to, you know, the terminals up in our lower orbit. But I don't want to sound morbid, but really, that's really where the agenda is attempting to head. But in order to have some of this powerful weaponry, in order to have AI expand, they're going to need a lot of power, and they're going to need, so part of it, yes, it would really depend on your councils, who's doing it and for what purpose. And it, if I feel when it's rolled out, the only way that stops it from being rolled out is if a lot of people start writing petitions and peacefully protesting, but start writing petitions. But you know, the governments want to stay competitive and up to date with technology as well. It's the policies around some of the implementation of these things that you need to look out for rather than the actual implementation. They're the signs. They're the signs that you see, the physical signs of something happening, but you're going to have to actually see exactly what policies they're trying to put in place, like controlling hate speech laws and so forth, and restricting age limits of going onto the internet, and shutting down ATMs, and eventually gearing towards a cashless society. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening in the next 2 to 3 years, but I see that it will happen. Slowing it down. What's going to slow down? It's really the agenda that you want to slow down rather than the building of the technology. Because the technology is going to advance itself whether a country goes ahead with it or not. So the country is going to want to invest in being advanced technologically and being up to date with what's happening globally. You can't have China and other countries becoming very competitive. And that's why rare earth minerals are a very big thing, because they're having to mine for these things. And this is a lot of the things that go into the components that are being used. So the only thing that it will be slowing down is the actual ultimate agenda from the World Economic Forum and the globalists. And that is being slowed down and being deconstructed. But in saying that, technology will keep on expanding and it will explode. And so what we need to do is keep ourselves as healthy as possible and start to implement things in our daily regime of, you know, grounding ourselves. If you can't go outside in nature, you get yourself grounding mats. You get yourself blue blocking glasses to actually, when you're watching computer screens, you actually make some changes in your home. So, you know, you don't disrupt your body 24-hour body clock, your circadian rhythm that keeps you healthy. And it's not just about eating healthy, it's about basically not becoming blue light toxic from all the technology, and particularly your children and their developing brains. So if you want to know more about this, let me know in the comments and I can do a video on it. But I digress. But I feel it's actually a good point. So I feel some people may find it interesting. I shall move on. Carla, Laura, you were right about the oil production increase in Alberta. Premier Danielle Smith just said she was told by Enbridge and two other pipeline companies that they want to twin their pipelines to move more oil from Alberta. But it's concerning there is Chinese armed guards at an oil facility in Alberta. China stealing Alberta oil, or maybe was a deal from Carney. It's concerning that Carney is now hiring immigrants in the Canadian military and giving them instant citizenship. Once Carney gets that majority, Canadians will be in big trouble and censored more. That's a correct statement. That's true. They will be if that happens. Also, Pierre Poilievre was just in the US on the Joe Rogan show. That's great if he's working with Trump finally. Please ask if Trump will seize Canada because of Carney allowing more CCP, China controlling Canada. Okay. It goes back to the previous question from Shauna about the military, the military agreement that Canada has made to Japan. And I'm going to kind of expand on that with that here. This is purely my gut feeling. The Trump administration is actually wanting to increase its influence, particularly in the northern region that affects the Americas and that northern Arctic region. The current administration is going to do everything it possibly can. That's why there's a lot of talk around Greenland, acquiring Greenland, and that's why they're trying to expand into South America to reduce the influence of Beijing. And because the Belt and Road Initiative that was being expanded by China, where China kind of got into economic agreements with these countries purchasing a port, but the countries weren't able to afford it, so they basically were able to take over that port, and then they start to build military bases. Trump's administration is trying to actually deconstruct that, and the way he's doing it is by cutting out the funding. That's why Iran was very critical in this. And what's really interesting, everybody came together to actually help Ukraine when they were battling Russia, but they're not wanting to support Trump when it comes to securing the Strait of Hormuz to allow the oil to come through. And Trump being the dominant personality that he is, and the vocal personality that he is, almost puts them in a position where they have no choice. But also too, the president of NATO basically came forward at a conference and said, NATO cannot be without the United States. We need the United States, when Trump was threatening to leave NATO. So if there is Chinese influence, I don't know whether this is on federal land, because your premier probably may not be able to have control if it's over federal land. And I don't know what land rights. Is it on the land rights of the Indigenous that they've claimed? It's really interesting how this works. In Australia, I had actually discovered when I was researching that the Indigenous, under some kind of treaty, could actually claim Crown land. And if that was approved, and these approvals were being rushed through, they could basically do what they wanted to do on that land. And I'd say that they could actually have foreign investors come onto those lands as well, and inadvertently those foreign investors could mine or do whatever, and they don't have to actually report back to the government about that. I don't know if the government gets involved. I'll really need to investigate that, but I'm just giving you a summary. So I don't know whether that's going to be the same there for Alberta. I don't know whether that's actually on approved Indigenous land, if that's the land that they're actually standing up and wanting to claim. But either case, I feel that whatever influence China is trying to initiate, take over in parts of Canada, the Trump administration is not going to stand for it, because they don't want China at their doorstep, particularly near their border. And they're not going, the US wants to expand its, mining and drilling and all of that. I feel the US wants to have its finger in many pies when it comes to mining and drilling. So whatever influence is being built now, the Carney government's going to try to rush through. They're ultimately not going to have a majority. I don't feel that they'll have a majority, but they have what is an equivalent to the rhinos in the US, the Republicans in name only. They've got people who are a little beholden to some things behind the scenes that they're able to influence votes. But I feel that that's starting to actually fall apart too, because people from Carney's party, there is infighting. People from Carney's party is not going to agree, but he's going to be able to keep it together to a point, and they're going to lose at the next election. I do feel that. I have said multiple times, initially I thought before the last election, I thought Pierre was going to win. And then I had a feeling that he was going to lose, and he did lose. And then people were asking me, will he win? We need him. And I couldn't see him winning. I couldn't see him taking over. And even though I see he's making the rounds, he's being more strategic and clever, I'm still on the fence. I'm not quite sure and I'm not quite tapped in. And maybe if I actually do another slide for Canada, I might get a stronger feeling whether Pierre will actually be your next Prime Minister. I've got no, he won't, but I feel he's doing everything right. But it will be somebody who has the best interest of Canada and Canadian sovereignty at heart. And so things can be reversed. And if there were leases that were bought into for 99 years, things can be paid out as well. So it can be done. All I could really say is don't give up hope. You've got to have faith. I've always said collectively we are more powerful. Knowledge is power. And I hope that's answered your question in a long form. But yeah, my short videos become a long video. Okay. I'm on to Australia now. So if the Canadians don't want to wait, goodbye. I'm on to Australians, but please, you're welcome to stay and continue to watching. I'm very grateful for everybody who watches my videos. It seems the information is coming through very quickly, so I'm speaking very quickly. And this is a question from 2011. Hi, Laura. I have a question about the coming Victorian election. You said that Labor will be crushed. Do you see the coalition winning or one nation? One nation. One nation. Oh, okay. No, just, okay, that's a bold prediction. One nation will have its first premier. Victoria. Um, Also, which party do you think will win South Australia? I actually did predict that Labor was going to win, but I also predicted that the One Nation will actually have One Nation's really building a lot of momentum, and they're going to be able to get enough seats. I know that they're going to be getting more. I feel they're going to be winning many more seats. They're going to winning more Senate seats, but they're going to be getting some in the lower house as well. I feel they're going to be really able to influence policy. In saying that, I do actually see that Labor may scrape its nose through at the next election, but it will be actually controlled. The policies and what happens in Parliament will actually be controlled by One Nation. One Nation will have its first premier in Victoria. Wow, that's a bold statement. I hate putting out bold statements because, anyway, I said it as I felt it, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I think that's oh no, I have one more question. This is from Miss G. Miss G. Okay. Hi, Laura. Oh, okay. I'm a night owl too. Okay, this is when I was going to do my live. Can you see if Starmer is deliberately destroying the UK, and will he give away Chagos? And will he be gone soon? Um, he will be gone soon. I keep on getting he's going to be embarrassed. He's going to be kind of shamed. And I just got he's out. There's going to be a delay with Chagos. I'm going to have to look into that because I'm not quite sure what the US influence is on Chagos, but I just got that US is going to, I don't know, it's going to be delayed because US may not be happy with it. So I don't really know much about Chagos, but that's the feeling that I got. Um, and I really do feel that it is actually bordering on deliberate destruction of the United Kingdom. I really do. I really feel that. But that gentleman, that MP, I forget his name. He is building traction. And so is Tommy Robinson more than before now. Tommy Robinson's voice is going to be quite strong, but it's going to be that other gentleman. I mentioned him before. I can't remember his name now, to be honest. He's going to really build a lot of traction, build a lot of patriots are going to be stepping forward. There's going to be a major shift that happens in the UK, but it's going to take, yeah, 2-3 years for things to really, even up to 5 years for really things to be settled and reversed. So there, a lot of damage is being done. A lot of damage is being done in the United Kingdom. Okay. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. If you're still watching, thank you for watching. And I'll be back again with more updates I'm going to be working on. I find it hard to make promises because sometimes my timing never deliver on time, but I'll be opening up for a personal Q&A in the community. So just on the main homepage, just select post or community, and you'll just keep an eye out for when I open it up to personal questions. And then I do free mini readings there as well. But that's all for Geopolitics Q&A until next time. So goodbye and God bless.